We are living in a world of wonders. 2,000 giant machines cut and transport tens of tons of minerals in mines. Or look closely at the aircraft carrying millions of passengers every day. A few hundred seats on a rocket taking us to the stars. Those are just a few small examples of the proud achievements of modern technology in today's human world. But are you sure that we are the first to know, research, and create these things? Could it be that in thousands of years of history, there were civilizations that did the same? Or during that very time, have we missed a part, an extremely important part, without even knowing it? If this is true, where did that knowledge come from? Let's find the answer together in the first part of the series, The Forgotten Part of History. Throughout the length of history, many civilizations have been born, grown, flourished, and then mysteriously vanished. All the stories, achievements, or evidence left behind by these civilizations are related to gods connected to human life. Deities are often described as creators who made all things, controlled the weather, and passed on the necessary knowledge for humans to survive and develop. Personally, I believe that gods are just another name for beings not from this earth. Entities that always appear in the most common way, descending from the sky. And the answer to the question that millions of people around the world are asking today about ancient alien visitations is yes. If that's the truth, then who were they? Why did they come here? Where did they go? Will they return? Perhaps no civilization was more strongly influenced by the gods than ancient Egypt. And at the site, 20 miles south of Cairo, lies the City of the Dead, containing the famous Step Pyramid, the resting place of King Djoser. It's not famous for its imposing and massive appearance, but for its history. It is identified as the oldest of Egypt's pyramids, with over 4,000 years of history. In 1891, French archaeologists excavated and studied an ancient tomb belonging to Padi Iman, an official who lived around the 3rd century BCE. A number of grave goods buried with their owner were found. But mixed among the excavated artifacts, a small wooden model resembling a bird appeared, lying next to a roll of paper inscribed with the words, "I want to fly." As was customary, the artifact was transferred to the Cairo Museum and placed among the models of birds. The bird model lay there like an ordinary object for the next several decades. Then, in 1969, Dr. Khalil Messiah discovered something very strange about this bird model from the City of the Dead. The strange thing was the wings that this model depicted. Looking at it normally, one can easily see it depicts a bird because the eyes and beak are clearly shown. Only the wings are definitely not the wings of any bird species in the world. Looking closely at the model, we realize the part of the wing close to the bird's body is slightly thicker than the wingtip. This is the point of greatest lift. Both wings are thicker near the body and taper towards the tip. This cannot be a coincidence. This design is too ideal for some kind of flying device. To this day, we still use this perfect aerodynamic design for modern airplanes. Furthermore, this model clearly shows a tail rudder at the back, and as you surely know, birds do not have rudders. They are themselves an aerodynamic structure that can steer. Therefore, this tail does not represent a bird. If this isn't an airplane, it must at least be some kind of flying device of the ancient Egyptians. Speculation, of course, is never convincing. To be more persuasive, we must have practical tests. When they scaled up the Egyptian bird model to 5 times its size to observe its gliding ability, The results were not unexpected. It was a perfect glider, no less than modern gliders. This completely changes our thinking about what is described about ancient peoples in textbooks. They were smarter, with more advanced technology than we imagined. Over 7,000 kilometers from Egypt, hidden in the jungles of Colombia, is where many treasure hunters believe the legendary golden city of El Dorado exists. For centuries, thousands of treasure hunters flocked to Colombia to search for the legendary treasures. While the city of gold has shown no sign of being found after all these years, in the early 20th century, tomb raiders accidentally discovered a 1,500-year-old burial ground right next to the Magdalena River. This cemetery belonged to the Tolima civilization. Although they couldn't find the city of gold, hundreds of small gold figurines were found at this burial site. Most of the gold figurines depict insects and fish. It wouldn't be noteworthy if, among the hundreds of figurines, there weren't dozens of objects that remind us of a modern fighter jet from the very first glance. They have all the parts, from the tail wing, the stabilizing tail, to the main wings, all very specific. Of course, nothing in nature has a similar shape. One object even shows wings very characteristic of a modern fighter jet. No insect in evolutionary history has possessed wings on the lower part of its body. This cannot be an insect. To prove this hypothesis, in 1997, two German scientists, Algund Ibum and Peter Belting, began to create an airplane based on the model of the golden figurines. A larger version was equipped with both landing gear and an engine. Ibum shared that it was a fairly simple job because we didn't need to add many details to the model. It was already so perfect. Surprisingly, that perfection came from indigenous people over 2,000 years ago. The dimensions and proportions were so perfect that when scaled up many times, they still didn't need to trim or add a single centimeter to the machine. What gave these indigenous people such an amazing understanding of aerodynamics? Immediately after completion, the remote-controlled aircraft taxied and took off from the runway as if it were inevitable. A highly successful test showing that applied science truly appeared a very, very long time ago. From two halves of the globe, thousands of kilometers apart, we have examples proving the level of understanding of ancient people. Both have perfect aerodynamic shapes and designs. Most importantly, they both fly. It would be foolish to say this is simply a coincidence. Ancient people either actually built flying machines like this, or, at the very least, saw them flying. Controlled by some entity, beings who can fly in the sky often appear with smoke and fire, gliding through space and then disappearing. They could only be gods, or more simply, astronauts from an extraterrestrial civilization. Many myths from different cultures describe their deities as people from the sky who descended to Earth, riding fire-breathing dragons. Many people also believe that myths are often based on something real. Did ancient people imagine these gods? Or were they just trying to describe something they didn't truly understand? If you are ready, let your imagination go a little further. The gods, or in other words, extraterrestrial astronauts, landed here, teaching science and technology to humans. They directly impacted the development of our ancestors, bringing miracles with the advanced technology they possessed. But is this evidence enough to convince us that we were visited by other civilizations in the past? Let's journey to India to pull back the curtain of mystery about the gods through irrefutable evidence found in India, a place where over 1.2 billion people live together amidst modern megacities and crowded slums. This is considered one of the oldest and most ancient civilizations on Earth. Along with this antiquity comes a series of the earliest records and texts about ancient technologies. Many ancient Sanskrit texts contain varied but very detailed descriptions of the flying machines of the gods. These flying machines soaring in the sky are collectively called vimanas. In Sanskrit texts, vimanas are described as machines using a typical jet propulsion system. Whenever they appeared, the surrounding apes ran in panic, and the grass around them was flattened by the force from behind the vimanas. This description is similar to a spacecraft taking off or landing using jet propulsion. Historians merely think these are myths. Others believe they were machines that truly existed thousands of years ago. The documents not only record information about strange flying machines, but also discuss the materials that made the vimanas, the power and energy supplies, the pilots who controlled them, and even the weapons carried on the vimanas. The Vaimanika Shastra text claims that vimanas were powered by rotating gyroscopes set in a vortex of mercury. Did you know we can do many wonderful things with mercury? It is a liquid, an electrical conductor, and also a metal. When mercury is put into a rotating gyroscope, we can obtain electricity, lift, anti-gravity effects, and even centrifugal light effects. Ancient texts mention mercury gyroscopes and propulsion, or more accurately, a form of what is called flywheel energy storage. In reality, flywheel energy storage systems lose energy quickly. To operate in a vacuum, they must be enormous. Flywheel storage is more suitable for something underground, helping us store energy and release it when needed. To fly, the machine needs something lighter. Perhaps they were trying to describe something other than mercury, some liquid not from Earth. In another aspect, the appearance of vimanas could also prove that ancient people had a global transportation network long before Columbus. Today, our world is connected by transportation and global communication methods. All distances are almost erased. In a way, it's not just a connection in terms of geographical space, but a connection of culture, intellect, and community. For example, a song by Justin Bieber takes North America by storm and immediately makes a huge impact in Europe, Korea, and Vietnam. The similarities in architecture and religion among ancient civilizations around the world also show that they were connected in some special way through communication methods or global trade routes. In Mexico, there is a mountain called Monte Alban. The top of this mountain was cut off in a way that turned it into a mountain with a flat top like a table. On top of this flat surface is an entire ancient city built of monolithic stone. This unusual flatness seems to have been prepared for the landing and takeoff of vimanas. Do you feel a sense of familiarity when looking at the Nazca lines or the strange flat tops in the Oaxaca Valley of Mexico? Don't they look like our runways today? And the vimanas must have been the machines in that air transport system. It's not just India. Many other civilizations in Africa and the Middle East also talk about how humans moved through the air using different vehicles in the forgotten part of history. Not just South America or India, evidence of humanity moving or seeing machines move through the air also appears in Africa and the Middle East. According to a holy book called the Kebra Nagast of the Ethiopian people, their queen, Sheba, once received a very special gift: a flying carpet from King Solomon of Israel. You may not know, the Kebra Nagast is the most sacred ancient text for Ethiopians. Inside, it clearly records that King Solomon was said to have access to some kind of flying machine. And because they didn't know what it was, the term flying carpet was used. Perhaps you are thinking what I'm thinking. Could Aladdin's flying carpet be a high-tech product? The Kibra Nagast also mentions that King Solomon used the flying carpet to travel to many places in the world. He visited Tibet, the mountains, and drew maps of the world with this magical vehicle. In a way, is there a connection between King Solomon's maps and other ancient maps that have been found? Or rather, of course there is. These maps show us a world not like today's. It looks more like the last ice age. This is hard to explain logically. Go on Google and search for the Orance Fine map or the Mercator map. Don't be surprised when they show the Antarctic continent in great detail and accuracy, hundreds of years before explorers ever set foot there. To discuss ancient texts and ignore the Bible would be a major omission. Allusions to unidentified flying objects also appear frequently in it. In the book of Ezekiel, the flying chariot is an object constructed with a wheel within a wheel and operated by angels. Typically, biblical historians think of fearsome, hostile forces opposing the Israelites through Ezekiel's description. This isn't entirely wrong, just that there's something not quite logical here. In the description, do you notice that the flying vehicle shows no indication of moving by push or pull forces? Only when you put the word angel in quotation marks and understand it as referring to an energy source from the sky does everything become truly miraculous. Now, the machine bears the hallmarks of a spaceship. Ezekiel encounters something. He immediately kneels, trembling and terrified. And then, from within the glory of the Lord, a being in shining metal-like garments steps down. Doesn't this look like the scene of a spaceship landing with astronauts in protective suits? While ancient texts, legends, and stories often lead us to vague and hard-to-explain theories, tangible evidence provides much more clarity about our past. Have you ever wondered how ancient people moved, cut, and built colossal structures from stone blocks weighing hundreds of tons? Even with today's machinery and technology, it would be difficult for engineers to replicate a similar structure. And archaeologists insist that ancient people used copper chisels and copper wires to cut stone, then transported them using pulleys, wheels, and inclined planes. Personally, I find it completely impossible to build great works from these simple machines. The ancients needed another technology, one far beyond our own today. Every one of us has heard of or seen the Giza pyramids at least once in our lives, a true wonder of the ancient world, made from countless stone blocks fitted together with astonishing precision. But if you have the chance to visit Giza, you will see it's not just the pyramids. There is also a place researchers call the underground temple. And guess how they were built? The underground temple was built with stone blocks weighing hundreds of tons. You heard right, hundreds of tons. To put it in perspective, 100 tons is equivalent to about 100 small cars. For years, scientists focused only on finding the answer to how the Egyptians moved these blocks, forgetting another question. Why did they have to use such large stones? It's like having a math problem to solve. You'd want to find the quickest, easiest way to handle it. The Egyptians had smaller stones. They could also cut stone, as archaeologists say. So what was the point of using stones so large they are hard to imagine? There is only one possible explanation. Simply because they didn't find it difficult to lift a few hundred tons at all. Perhaps the technology the Egyptians possessed was far beyond ours. Of course, those who believe in ancient alien intervention don't necessarily claim that extraterrestrial visitors built these great works. Perhaps our ancestors were fully capable of receiving and transferring technologies more advanced than their descendants today. There is a very brief and concise record of how these massive stone blocks were transported. They took stone from the quarry. Then the masters, as the ancient Egyptians called them, spread something white on the stone block. Then they sat on it and gave it a light push, and the 100-ton stone block moved as if by magic. It couldn't be magic. It was technology. It resembles the anti-gravity technology we are researching today. The technological secrets of the ancients lie not only in moving stones, but also in their masterful craftsmanship. In the world's largest stoneworking workshops today, we need many machines for cutting and grinding to shape hard stone. Most common are power-assisted tools like diamond wire saws, polishing machines, and so on. However, even with all this machinery, no place today has been able to replicate what ancient civilizations did thousands of years ago. That cutting technique, almost absolutely precise, is irrefutable evidence of the presence of foreign technology. Let's return to the Bible once more. You've surely heard of the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt. How did the Israelites survive to reach the Promised Land? In Egypt, the Israelites were treated brutally, no different from slaves. But later, around the 14th century BCE, the Pharaoh suddenly feared the rapid population explosion of the Israelite community. An order was given to kill all newborn Israelite sons. In this dire situation, a mother, in an effort to save her poor newborn child, placed him in a basket and set it adrift on the Nile River. The baby was later found and raised by the Pharaoh's royal family, who named him Moses. At this point, some of you probably recognize the leader of Israel, right? Over time, Moses grew up, discovered his identity, and demanded that Pharaoh free the Israelites. The pharaohs naturally did not accept this. Moses was forced to lead his people to flee Egypt. The group crossed the Red Sea and the Sinai Desert. But the Lord unleashed his wrath on the Israelites for the sin of idolatry. He forced them to wander in the desert for 40 years before being allowed to enter the Promised Land. The Bible says that during those 40 years, all the Israelites were fed by a single food source called manna. But what exactly was manna? No one knows for sure. Was it a type of grain, an abundant food provided by God? Or could it be more simply understood as the product of a modern food processing machine? When the Israelites decided to flee Egypt for the Promised Land, there were certainly many women and children among the masses. No food preparation would be sufficient to meet the needs of everyone for decades. When the Lord saw this, he decided to intervene, sending manna from heaven to save his people. Like a kind of seed, the food was scattered by God in the desert. The Israelites had to gather it for their meals that day and the following days. On the 6th day, the amount was double because the 7th day was the Sabbath, and manna would not fall. Everything about manna in the Israelite Bible remains a vague concept. No one has enough basis to guess exactly what manna was. However, another ancient text provides a lot of valuable information about manna. The Zohar, a collection of religious interpretations of the Torah written in the 13th century. The book mentions the Creator who provided manna. So, was the Creator a person, God, or a machine? The most famous detail in the book: a strange face and lid of unusual size connected by tubes and hoses. Next to them were many unusual light streams, unlike any natural light. To be honest, if this is a description of God, it seems a bit illogical. From a modern perspective, this image isn't really God. A machine makes more sense when placed next to the processing descriptions. Proving this point, two electrical engineers, George Sassoon and Rodney Dale, tested it themselves by creating a mana machine based on the ancient text description. Basically, the machine they created had an air intake to suck in what is called the breath of life. After the air entered, the brain of God acted as a condensation point. Then, water vapor was combined into the cultivation process, creating some kind of energy thanks to a powerful laser that accelerated the growth process. Of course, the machine needed energy to operate. It's possible the energy came from a small nuclear reactor, creating both heat and light. Because really, what energy source is more suitable than nuclear energy to maintain machinery for decades? Assuming the mana machine is real, it's a dangerous machine, as everyone understands how harmful radiation from a nuclear reaction is to humans. For the machine to operate normally, it needed something to shield the reactor and supply it with fuel. Coincidentally, the Ark of the Covenant in the Bible has many of these characteristics. We have many references to the Ark of the Covenant in the Bible, stating that anyone who did not know how to operate it and dared to approach the Ark would pay with their life. Many people who touched the Ark suffered severe bodily destruction. Their hair fell out, their fingernails fell off, their skin peeled. Based on this detail, it's possible this phenomenon was a form of radiation poisoning. The Ark of the Covenant contained an extraterrestrial device that powered the food-producing machine, feeding the Israelites during their 40-year wandering in the desert. Back to the strange food mentioned earlier. According to reconstructions, manna was likely nutrient-rich chlorella algae, also known as pyramid algae. More evidence from the modern world supports this hypothesis. The food problem for today's astronauts has been solved now that chlorella algae has been successfully cultivated. NASA researched this issue back in the 1970s. The results showed that human life can be sustained on chlorella algae alone, without needing anything else. If modern astronauts can do it, why couldn't the Israelites? At this point, many of you might forget the detail about the Sabbath. Why did the manna grains not fall once a week? The answer is very simple. Because that was the time to clean the machine. It needed to be maintained, refueled, and cleaned after each week. Whatever the real answer is, the Israelites were truly extraordinary for their 40-year journey in the desert. We've gone through the precise, perfect cuts in granite, the ancient global transportation network, and the strange food of the Israelites. What energy source helped the ancient world discover and operate these technologies? The answer to that immense energy source also comes from an immense structure, the Giza pyramids. Reaching 143.5 meters high, for over 4,400 years, no human structure surpassed this height. It wasn't until 1889, when the Eiffel Tower was built, that the height record was broken. There are many different pyramids in the world, most of them bearing hieroglyphs about the purpose for which they were built. Surprisingly, the Great Pyramid has no trace of tool marks, carvings, or pictographs inside. No one can explain the purpose of the Great Pyramid. The interior design makes no sense to our way of thinking. You'll find passages so narrow you have to crawl to get through, only to emerge into a 9-meter-high gallery, and the chamber inside is made entirely of granite, even though there is no granite within 900 kilometers of the area. Egyptologists believe in the pyramid's function as a tomb, even though no pharaoh's mummy has ever been found inside. Building such a colossal structure just for burial, isn't that too ostentatious? It's no different from inviting tomb robbers from all over. There's also a hypothesis that the pyramid was actually an ancient power plant. To understand this, we need to understand the wireless power tower of the great scientist Nikola Tesla. He saw the Earth as one plate of a capacitor, with the ionosphere 80 to 800 kilometers above the Earth, forming the second plate. Recent measurements show the voltage difference between these two plates is about 400,000 volts. If we could control and harness the electrical discharge between these two plates, we would have an endless source of energy. This is similar to wanting to control lightning in a thunderstorm. Based on this principle, Tesla said the Earth could provide free, unlimited energy to anyone, anywhere on the planet. In 1899, Tesla stated, "I have finally succeeded in creating an electrical discharge whose power far exceeds that of lightning." Tesla believed that by building wireless transmission towers, people anywhere in the world could stick a conductor from a device into the ground, tune the frequency to resonate with the tower's frequency, and receive electricity. In 1901, using funds from billionaire J.P. Morgan to build a transatlantic communication tower, Nikola Tesla, instead of building a communication system, built a wireless power tower called Wardenclyffe on Long Island, New York, to realize his idea. The Wardenclyffe Tower was also said to be built on aquifers, a place rich in electricity. It had the shape of an octagonal pyramid, topped with a hemispherical dome. Negative charge from the base of the tower would travel up and accumulate on the dome. Tesla used a transformer to create high voltage to stimulate the tower's discharge process. And on many nights in 1903, the people of New York saw the Wardenclyffe Tower emit giant, artificial lightning bolts stretching tens of kilometers. They lit up the sky so brightly that people on ships in the Atlantic could read newspapers at night. "The waves generated by my energy transmitters will be the greatest energy wells on the planet," Nikola Tesla said. The scientist's deployment of the Wardenclyffe Tower was cut short when J.P. Morgan discovered Tesla's true intentions and cut off funding. However, he continued to conduct his experiments at this tower in secret. Similar to that project, the Great Pyramid has all the conditions to be a power plant. The outer layer of the pyramid was composed of white tufa limestone, which does not contain magnesium, making it a good insulator, thus preventing the electrical energy inside from escaping. Furthermore, the stone blocks were fitted so tightly that not even a razor blade could slip between them. This sophisticated insulation property allowed the ancient Egyptians to completely control the electricity generated inside the pyramid. Not only that, the interior of the pyramid used a different type of limestone containing small amounts of quartz crystals and metal, two important components that optimize electrical conductivity. In addition, the tunnels built inside the pyramid were made of mildly radioactive granite, allowing the air inside to be ionized. This feature makes the pyramid like an electrical cable with a conductive core and an insulating outer shell. The Giza Pyramid Complex was erected on top of underground limestone aquifers, and the spaces between them contained a large amount of flowing water. This groundwater has the ability to conduct electrical energy upwards. The large flow of the Nile River, passing through these rock cavities, could generate a current called a telluric current. The tunnels inside the pyramid act as conductors, charged by these telluric currents. This means that with the materials used and the special construction of the pyramid, the electromagnetic field generated deep beneath the pyramid was conducted upwards. It is believed that in the distant past, a device with very high conductivity, possibly gold, was placed on the pyramid's capstone, a place that today is just an empty, strange-looking space. From the top of the pyramid, electricity was transmitted wirelessly to tall towers built around it. In closing here, a question suddenly occurs to me. Were the proud technologies of today already widespread throughout the world thousands of years ago? Welcome to the next episode of the Forgotten Part of History Visitors. And I believe that for those with a passion for UFOs, Roswell is the first name that pops into their minds when this topic is mentioned. This is a small town in New Mexico, USA. The peace of this small town was completely shattered in 1947. A farmer reported to the authorities that a flying craft had exploded and crashed on his ranch. Very quickly, agencies from the press, police, FBI, and military were all present to verify the incident. A few weeks later, surprisingly, a press release confirming the appearance of an alien spacecraft was issued. But for some inexplicable reason, just one day later, the military completely retracted the statement. They corrected it, saying the object found was simply a crashed weather balloon. Despite trying hard to cover it up, the contradiction from the US military quickly caused a global wave of excitement. The town of Roswell quickly became famous and a common keyword in many conversations. Gradually, people came to associate UFOs with the Roswell incident by default. In hundreds of random surveys conducted, more than half of the respondents believe that aliens have visited Earth in the past or are still visiting Earth every day. What makes so many people believe in this theory? The universe is too vast, dangerous, and certainly far beyond human understanding. The Earth has 4.6 billion years of formation, evolution, and development to reach today. In that 4.6 billion years, the few 100,000 years since humans appeared is almost negligible, and it is naive to think we are the only ones in that long stretch of time. In 1969, Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon, and our perception of the universe changed forever. This event raised a new question. If we can travel to other planets, why can't other beings in the universe? Here, over 2,000 years ago, was the cultural and religious capital of the Nazca people. But around 500 CE, the Nazca mysteriously disappeared. The ancient capital fell into complete ruin. Like many other archaeological sites, this ancient capital gradually became a place for archaeologists and anthropologists to explore and study. In 1910, scientist Alois Hrdlicka came to Peru to study the ancient Nazca civilization more deeply. During an excavation, he found the most stunning things he had ever seen in his research career. They were strange skulls, much larger and thicker than human ones. Where did they come from? Why were they there? And were they human skulls? Obviously, to anyone, these skulls look extremely bizarre. I mean, they look exactly like aliens. However, on the other hand, some people argue this is just the result of the custom of artificial cranial deformation. This custom was well known in the ancient world. The process of skull deformation was also meticulously documented by the explorer Georg Schweinfurth in 1870. During his expedition, he had the opportunity to interact with the Mangbetu tribe. They often performed a skull-binding ritual that allowed them to change the shape of the human skull. They used cloth to wrap around children's skulls, then pressed and bound them tightly. As they grew, the skulls became progressively elongated and extended backward. In some rare cases, the skull could double its normal size this way. But why did they have to do this? In my opinion, this action was because they thought people with longer, larger skulls possessed superior intelligence compared to others. In other words, they were trying to make themselves look like a more advanced being they had encountered. It seems the ancient people had an incorrect understanding of the intelligence of these visitors from off-world. We must admit that there have been many attempts to depict the appearance of aliens. The most common and widely accepted feature is the elongated head, gray skin, shorter stature than humans, and eyes that are just a solid black color. Returning to ancient Egypt, some convincing images of unusually long heads were found. Even more notably, these images are related to the most controversial pharaoh in history. Was he also trying to make himself look like those alien beings? Or, more simply, he wasn't imitating anyone. He was one of them. In Egypt, before people settled along the Nile River, they told stories of an era called Zep Tepi, or the first time. Legend says Zep Tepi was the period when the gods, children of the gods, descended from the stars to earth in flying boats from mud and water. They used magic to create an entire new kingdom. In the ancient Egyptian language, God means neter, which means one who comes from the sky. They were very insistent that their gods had descended from the stars. You may not know, the god Osiris, along with his wife and sister, the goddess Isis, were both gods. In the Egyptian stories, the god Osiris is identified with the constellation Orion, and Isis is identified with the star Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. And the noteworthy thing here is that within the Orion constellation, there is a region called a stellar nursery. Many stars in our Milky Way galaxy are born from this region. So what reason did the Egyptians have to truly believe that the gods they worshipped originated from the constellations? Many texts from around the world show us that ancient civilizations possessed astonishing knowledge of astronomy, including knowledge of the stars, planets, and celestial movements. The ancient Egyptians successfully built a civilization. The populace believed the pharaohs were descendants of the god Osiris. This meant they were also gods. Among the myriad gods the people worshipped, the pharaoh always held the highest position. For over 1,000 years, this did not change, becoming an inseparable religious belief, until one pharaoh appeared and changed everything. Who was this pharaoh? He was Akhenaten. The pharaoh with the long head I mentioned earlier, legend still records him as a descendant of the gods who came to earth during Zep Tepi. Akhenaten ascended the throne in 1352 BCE, becoming the 10th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. He immediately implemented radical religious reforms, including banning the circulation or mention of polytheistic beliefs. All images of previous gods had to be erased. He allowed only one symbol, representing the sun, to exist. You and we are all wondering why Akhenaten did this. Poetic texts written about him later say that a being visited him and said, "This is my fault. I am your god." That being was known as Aten, and Akhenaten also claimed to be a descendant of Aten. After that, he and his wife. He also issued more reforms related to culture and art, thenceforth the depiction of his form to the public. After his proposal, the most important criteria when depicting an Egyptian king were broad shoulders and a slim waist. Akhenaten was the complete opposite. He wanted his image to be as realistic as possible. Although his image seems a bit unusual, when standing in front of a statue of Akhenaten, everyone recognizes the abnormality in his appearance. An androgynous figure, half male, half female, combined with a long, deformed head, a sagging belly, and developed chest, completely contrary to the image of his predecessors. Why was this respected pharaoh's body so deformed? Was it due to a genetic mutation? I don't think so. I believe in a more daring hypothesis, that Akhenaten was a hybrid being, half human and half alien. 17 years into Akhenaten's reign, the sun temples built not long before were destroyed. His image was purposefully erased. Egypt quickly returned to its original polytheistic beliefs. The Egyptian people tried to hide his alien origins. In 1907, the actual mummy of Akhenaten was found by the archaeologist Edward R. Ayrton. Upon seeing the skeleton with their own eyes, people could definitively confirm that Akhenaten had a skull much longer than normal. Akhenaten's successor was his son, the most famous pharaoh of all time, Tutankhamun, who also had a long skull like his father. When mentioning cosmic beings landing on Earth, gods descending from the sky, we cannot ignore China, a place with countless myths about the legendary Yellow Emperor. A bright light shone down from the Big Dipper when the emperor descended from the belly of a fire-breathing dragon, becoming the first emperor of China. The emperor had magical powers of ascension, able to go anywhere in an instant by riding the dragon. He flew wherever he needed to go. The emperor established order, ending a long period of chaos to found the first Chinese state, inventing the compass, acupuncture, and Chinese characters. The most famous legacy he left behind is the Great Wall. When the realm was prosperous, he decided to leave. He summoned the dragon, climbed inside it, and flew away forever. Listen, was this dragon really a dragon in the biological sense? A dragon with smoke and fire pouring from its belly shares many similarities with a rocket. Not far from China, to the west, is the land of modern-day Iraq. The Babylonian legend Enuma Elish appeared in the 18th century BCE. The first ancient text was discovered in 1849 by a British archaeologist while excavating the library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh, and it recounts the process of creating the first humans by a cosmic being named Anunnaki. In Sumerian texts, we find descriptions of beings who descended from the sky, also called the Anunnaki. It clearly states they were beings who landed in flying vehicles. It's not just stories and text, but statues and carvings. Therefore, it is fascinating to realize that these beings look like modern-day astronauts. The carvings even clearly show these individuals wearing watches, boots, and helmets. A similar theme is also found in Greek and Roman mythology. They are still stories recounting contact with extraterrestrials, just in different ways. Both these civilizations held strong beliefs in powerful gods living in the heavens, frequently interacting with humanity. The most common example is Zeus and the other gods on Mount Olympus, possessing advanced civilization and science but also having very human characteristics. For example, they seduced women, had sexual desires, and had many children before returning. The story of gods mating with humans is very common in Greek mythology. The supreme god Zeus often descended to earth to mate with mortals, giving birth to demigods. The demigod Hercules or Helen of Troy were all figures of absolute beauty or unrivaled strength. In other words, the gods carried the genes of a superior species. Following a similar view as with Akhenaten, the gods were also products of aliens and humans. There is much evidence showing we are not alone in the universe, and that civilizations on Earth have interacted with other civilizations for a long time across many periods. The belief in the interaction between humans and extraterrestrial beings is also the origin of many religions. According to Genesis and the Bible, God created the first two humans, Adam and Eve. The Bible also contains passages about strange interactions between strange beings and humanity. They descended from the sky, mated with humans, and gave birth to different individuals like the giant Goliath. Interpreting these stories in the Bible has led to an endless debate. Assuming the ancient astronaut theory is correct, a new question arises. Who exactly were they? Let's use modern astrophysics and advanced biology to pull back this mysterious curtain. On March 18, 1965, Soviet cosmonaut Alexei Leonov stepped out of the Voskhod 2 spacecraft and became the first person to walk in space. He was outside the ship for 12 minutes and 8 seconds before returning. Outside, in the harsh vacuum of space, Leonov's life depended on his spacesuit. Humans definitely need spacesuits to survive in space. So, do extraterrestrial beings need suits like that when traveling to Earth? The answer is, of course, yes. Many rock paintings, statues, and carvings show us this. When we go to other planets, we still need protective suits to survive. Who can be sure those beings can breathe normally in Earth's atmosphere? Why do the images of ancient astronauts look like modern astronauts? Is it possible they are also like humans? Or do they also come from a planet similar to Earth? There is a very reasonable theory that explains this, and that is the panspermia theory. Simply put, panspermia theory believes that life originates in one specific place and then spreads to others. In the space between stars, molecules that are the basic components of life always exist. There are many ways for the seeds of life to travel from one place to another. For example, if life originated on Mars, it could have come to Earth, starting life on the blue planet. 3.6 billion years ago, Mars was warm and wet, just like Earth today. Biologists suggest that because Mars cooled faster than other planets, it's very possible life formed there first. Mars is a strong candidate when talking about the origin of life. Debris from Mars frequently hurtles towards Earth after breaking off from an impact. How do we know if it carried any seeds of life to Earth? On August 31, 1996, a group of scientists made a world-shaking announcement. They found a Martian meteorite in Antarctica that contained fossilized evidence of life. The rock fossil showed the presence of carbonate globules found in the excretions of microorganisms. It seems Earth is no longer alone. We have truly found another life form originating from another planet, right next to us. Astrobiologists are researching the origin and evolution of life in the universe, including the possibility that life on Earth originated from space. Life landed on Earth from outer space. Was it random, or was it perhaps sent intentionally? The British geneticist Francis Crick discovered the structure of DNA in 1953. And in the 1960s, it was Crick who became a proponent of panspermia, taking it to a new level with the idea of directed panspermia. Crick's hypothesis suggests that somewhere far away, on the other side of the galaxy, there was a civilization of highly intelligent beings. They realized their planet was on the brink of destruction for some reason. All life on their planet would be wiped out. So, as a highly intelligent civilization, what would it do in this situation? First, it tries to find a way to escape. Next, it finds a way to preserve life for themselves, for their descendants. Who knows, among the myriad planets, they found Earth to be the most suitable place to inhabit. This explains why ancient astronauts look so much like humans. And I don't sound crazy when I mention the possibility of ancient astronaut intervention in the origin of life on Earth. For thousands of years, All efforts to depict aliens have pointed to the same image. They have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, fingers, and a head just like us. According to biological theory, this body shape is called bilateral symmetry. In 2006, genetic researchers at the University of California discovered a region in the genome called HAR1. It is unique to humans, and scientists believe HAR1 plays a key role in the higher development of the human brain. It's also what makes us different from other animals. This special kind of mutation surely couldn't have arisen from random chance. To date, we have only grasped 5% of the information that DNA contains. Suppose one day, humans figure out all the information in our own DNA. We will see how cosmic beings influenced human evolution. There are still too many mysteries surrounding the ancient astronaut theory that need to be answered. They came down to Earth, inspired religions, appeared in many cultures, bringing different characteristics, but also being strangely similar to humans. The more we learn about this issue, the more new questions arise. We will continue to search, continue to ask questions, until the truth is revealed. The Forgotten Part of History. Episode 4. The Stop. When you go out on the street and ask someone for a place they consider the most confusing, mysterious, and infamous in the world, I bet at least 7 out of 10 people will answer the Bermuda Triangle. An area located between Miami, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda. It covers over 1,200 square kilometers and has stumped scientists worldwide in explaining the strange phenomena that occur there. Experienced sailors, renowned naval commanders, and even oceanographers can only shake their heads in frustration at this strange triangle. Stories of planes disappearing abnormally, strange lights being seen, are reported daily. There are even ships found completely empty but in good condition, without a single scratch, while the crews are missing. These are all true stories, clearly recorded and verified by many different agencies and units. If you call this a supernatural phenomenon, many would agree. But personally, I think these are just events we haven't seen before. What causes ships, planes, and crews to vanish without a trace? Why do all electronic, aviation, and maritime devices automatically change course or stop working? In reality, the history of the Bermuda Triangle is much older than we often hear. Even during the first voyages of discovery, sailors witnessed many strange sights. Awareness of the Bermuda Triangle is thought to have originated with one of history's greatest explorers, Christopher Columbus. On Columbus's expedition, the navigator and an experienced crewman wrote in their logs during the voyage to the New World about reaching an area where the compass suddenly stopped working. The next night, they also recorded seeing a large fireball flying low over the ocean. The weather became bizarre, and occasionally there would be unexplained flashes of light. Perhaps you are thinking the same thing I am. That's right, Columbus and his expedition had entered the Bermuda Triangle. This story shows that Bermuda is not a myth woven or fabricated by modern people. It truly existed long ago. Nearly 500 years after Columbus's voyage, on December 5th, 1945, the U.S. military witnessed firsthand the strange, chilling horror that Bermuda brings. At 2:00 p.m. that day, 5 aircraft took off from a base in Florida for a routine training mission. But just 2 hours after takeoff, all 5 planes suddenly disappeared. The Navy couldn't sit still with such a major incident. They immediately dispatched a rescue plane to search for the missing aircraft. But then, the rescue plane also vanished without reason. 6 aircraft, all flown by the most experienced pilots of the fleet, had disappeared into thin air. This incident shocked everyone. We have modern technologies like radar and radio, so how could a whole flight vanish into nothingness? The question is, where did they go? It all happened as if they decided to leave us and follow something else. As for what they followed, that will forever remain the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle. Fortunately, we have many living witnesses who returned from Bermuda to tell of its mysteries. American pilot Bruce Gernon is one of the few who returned from Bermuda. In 1970, he, his father, and a friend were flying from the Bahamas to Florida. He described his flight as follows. He saw a strange cloud ahead of the plane's nose. As he got a little closer, Gernon judged that the clouds were swirling into the shape of a boundless tunnel. At first, the entrance to the tunnel was very large, but then it began to narrow towards the end. As he continued to fly the plane inside, the most astonishing event of his life occurred. The cloud rolled and swirled into grooves like a gun barrel. The plane immediately experienced electrical and engine problems. Meanwhile, a strange, large, grayish-yellow fog enveloped Gernon's plane. When he escaped the strange cloud, he immediately called Miami Air Traffic Control, but they couldn't see his plane on the radar screen. About 3 minutes later, after losing contact with air traffic control, many were overjoyed when they picked up the signal again. They said he had already flown past Miami. Unbelievable! Gernon had flown past Miami in just over 37 minutes. At a normal speed, calculations showed it should have taken over an hour for the plane to leave Miami. Was there a bending of time and space inside that strange cloud? Or is it possible that extraterrestrial visitors used this route to come to Earth? According to the 20th century's greatest scientist, Albert Einstein, author of the theory of relativity, it is entirely possible. According to Einstein's theory, we can use gravity to bend space as we wish. Alien spaceships might have absorbed energy from the triangle, then created an energy explosion sufficient to bend space, combined with some particle, to take them where they needed to go. Ever since wormholes, also known as shortcuts through space-time, were announced theoretically, we've known they exist, all over the universe. It's not impossible that they exist in special areas on Earth. Many other reports about the Bermuda Triangle involve an unknown object or cloud interfering with an object's space-time. With the strange disappearances and tons of reports about sightings, there's no reason not to be suspicious of this place. If aliens really use this gate to come to us, could we also use this gate to visit them? If Bermuda is indeed a space gate, then surely there must be other similar places. Heading south of El Paso, Texas, lies a 400-mile stretch of hot, rugged desert. This area is called by the locals Zona del Silencio, or Zone of Silence. This place is famous for countless strange occurrences. If you come here with a phone, it will be useless because as soon as you enter the Zone of Silence, all phone signals disappear. Radios and compasses also become useless. That's not all. Everything in this place is bizarre. You can see unusual rocks everywhere, mutant animals running past, and even an itching sensation in your body when you step into the area. The Zone of Silence was first discovered in 1930. Francisco Sarabia noticed his radio stopped working while flying over the area. The Zone of Silence is located between the 26th and 28th parallels. If you draw a straight line through the location of the Zone of Silence, you will realize it also connects to the Bermuda Triangle and the Egyptian pyramids. This is definitely not a coincidence. It is a calculated connection. One of the most famous strange incidents in the Zone of Silence occurred on July 11, 1970. In that year, People began to pay more attention and started to explore, research, and investigate this land after a U.S. Athena rocket, launched from the White Sands base in New Mexico, disappeared inexplicably. According to the plan, the rocket was programmed to land about 1,126 kilometers away. The strange thing is, this rocket flew thousands of kilometers past the White Sands Range, heading towards the Zone of Silence in Mexico. U.S. military experts believe the Athena not only flew off course but flew way off course, as if it were pulled by some force towards the mysterious region. Carrying 2 containers of radioactive material, a U.S. Air Force team was immediately dispatched to this desert area. After 3 weeks of searching, all the U.S. investigation team, led by engineer Harry Estel and his group, recovered was the wreckage of the Athena and a small amount of radioactively contaminated soil. The investigation team also revealed that no radio waves could exist here. They felt the silence of the place as people couldn't communicate via radio waves. Mobile radios would emit the faintest whispers when turned to maximum volume. In the Zone of Silence, all radio signals are neutralized, turning the land into a dark zone with extremely strong magnetic properties that dampen radio waves. After this investigation, the name Zone of Silence quickly became known, and researchers subsequently flocked here to study the anomalous phenomena. Consequently, the Mexican government built a research complex here. The main purpose of the complex is to study the flora, fauna, and mineral components in the area to determine the cause of the signal loss. And a series of strange phenomena in the Zone of Silence were recorded. First, high levels of iron ore were found, and scientists discovered this is a place of meteoric activity, increasing speculation that perhaps the unusual magnetic properties are related to minerals in the ground. Over 3,000 years ago, the Anasazi people lived north of the Zone of Silence, in what is now the southern United States. Anasazi means ancient ones. They were particularly interested in the stars. Scientists have determined that in 1054, there was a supernova explosion visible from Earth. The first drawing of this event was also found inside a cave in Anasazi territory. To the south of the Zone of Sea, there were coincidentally cultures with a deep understanding of astronomy. Could they have exchanged information with the Anasazi in the north? Is it possible they used the Zone of Silence as a place to meet and exchange information? Did they find what they were looking for in the Zone of Silence? When you look back at the 2 cultures, the Anasazi and Mesoamerica to the south, you will easily realize they had a strong belief in visitors from the sky. Who were these visitors from the sky? Both cultures describe tall, pale, white-haired beings, unlike the local inhabitants, but strangely, they also didn't match the descriptions of their gods. According to oral tradition, the visitors from the sky introduced themselves to the local people. And perhaps these visitors are still introducing themselves to this day. There have been many missing persons reports in the Zone of Silence over the years. On October 13, 1975, a couple, Ernesto and Josefina Diaz, drove a pickup truck into the area to collect strangely shaped rocks and unusual fossils. While they were searching, a desert storm suddenly appeared. Under the heavy rain, the surrounding sand quickly turned into a swamp, trapping their vehicle. While struggling to get the truck out of the mire, they suddenly noticed 2 people approaching them, waving at them through the rain. 2 individuals of unimaginable height, looking strange but showing no signs of danger, offered to help. Ernesto and Josefina, they told the couple to get back in the truck so they could push from behind. Before the couple even realized it, the truck was free from the quicksand. The husband quickly jumped out of the truck to thank them, but the two beings were no longer there. Even stranger, the strangers left no footprints or any marks on the ground. Furthermore, rangers near the area say they frequently see strange lights, even fireballs, moving at night. They can change color, hang motionless in the air, and then suddenly shoot up into the sky as fast as lightning. The most famous UFO sighting occurred in September 1976 in Ceballos, the town closest to the zone of silence. Around 9:30 p.m., residents reported seeing a giant rectangular object hovering in the sky. Witnesses said it was about 300 meters long with flashing colored lights around its border. It emitted a strange sound, causing dogs to become agitated, howling and barking continuously. The object flew away after a few seconds, heading towards the zone of silence. However, are magnetic levels, legends of gods, or UFO sightings enough to prove a space gate exists? We still have one more gate to explore. Southeast of Lima, Peru, along Lake Titicaca, is a land that intrigues all visitors. Local shamans still come to perform rituals and pray at the stone wall on the plateau, as generations before them have done. This place is known to you as the Gate of the Gods. You can see this gate is quite puzzling because it doesn't really lead anywhere. It sits at an altitude of over 4,000 meters, a large rectangle with clearly carved structures. Why did people make such a gate? Or is it simply that we don't know how to pass through it? Stories of ancient Peru say this land was once united under a ruler and a communal spiritual tradition, the figure Amaru Muru. Coming from the ancient continent of Lemuria, this man is said to have brought many strange technological objects, including a powerful solar energy disk. According to the Peruvian peoples, after the continents of Mu and Atlantis were destroyed, the great king and priest appeared to help many primitive tribes. Thanks to his help, the ancient tribes were able to build temples, citadels, and monuments that still exist in different regions today. Also in the legend, the first great king passed through the gate by using a special key, the golden disc that Amaru Muru carried. Accordingly, he passed through the gate, and no one ever saw the great king again. At that time, a shaman who witnessed the entire event recounted it to the tribes in the area. From there, the story was passed down through many generations. Pay attention to the detail of the king's golden disc. Scientists have examined the Gate of the Gods and discovered a small, circular depression right in the middle of the gate. Some speculate this is the very place where the golden disc was placed to activate the gate. Anyone possessing the golden disc could come and use the gate. It would take them to meet the gods or call the gods to them. And does something truly special happen when the Gate of the Gods activates? This solar disk might be a high-tech device connected to aliens. It would help transport the user to another dimension and back easily. According to ancient astronaut theory, the Gate of the Gods is at the end of a wormhole. This is a type of gate capable of connecting to another region of the universe or another dimension. A wormhole, gravitational tunnel, is a theoretical structure based on the theory of general relativity. So, does the ability to connect Earth's space and time with another part of space and time in the universe truly exist through a tunnel? This structure was created so there would be shortcuts between distant parts of the universe. From this, we can see that wormholes are an accepted element in theoretical physics. I think the idea that gates existed in ancient times is likely true. we are increasingly finding more artifacts or objects representing those who have passed through strange passages or energy-based portals. In this case, it's like the ancient people, who didn't understand technology like we do, were trying to grasp the operation of gravitational tunnels. And could it be that Bermuda, del Silencio, or the Gate of the Gods, are the endpoints of one of the systems used by ancient astronauts to access our planet? Visitors who come to the Gate of the Gods and witness its grandeur and mystery often encounter bizarre phenomena, like hearing whistling, laughter, or music. A few people reported seeing images of stars or columns of fire that looked like two long channels along the threshold. An Australian tourist who visited the site said, "If you have the chance, come here." I was a bit skeptical at first, but I truly felt the energy radiating from it. The evidence in legends, the recorded encounters, the beliefs from many different cultures, and the remaining wonders. It's hard not to be suspicious of what ancient people accomplished. Now, where have those gods gone? Why did they come here to help us, only to leave without reason? Will they return in the future? There are so many more questions related to these visitors from the distant cosmos that we have yet to answer. Hopefully, through the Forgotten Part of History series, you have gained a new perspective on our ancient ancestors. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any future journeys of mystery discovery on the ADB Mysteries channel. Goodbye and see you again.